Aurrera egingo dugu, ze pausuz pauso etorri gara, hasieran kokapena egin dugu etxe honetan, etxea bera ere eraikitzen saiatzen ari gara, eta gogoeta egiteko beste laguntza oso baliogarri bat izango dugu jarraian. Hain zuzen ere, ondoren gurekin izango da Elisa Terrasi. Eta está por aquí, le voy a pedir que se vaya acercando, por favor, porque vamos a pedirle que nos acompañe en la que será la última parte de la mañana con una mirada que trascienda un poco también la experiencia exclusivamente que hemos trabajado hoy aquí. Nos va a acompañar en Forokoop, nos ha acompañado en muchas ocasiones en debates similares y la verdad es que es un placer y es un honor contar con su experiencia y con sus visiones. Hain zuzen ere, bera ekarpen eta esperientzia ikerketa lerro askotan ibilitakoa da, behin baino gehiagotan izan da gurekin. Elisa Terrasi is Development and Studies Officer at CICOPA, the International Organization of Industrial and Service Cooperatives. Beraz, berari eskatuko dioguna jarraian da beste begiratu bat egin dezan, hain zuzen ere, zabaltzeko apur bat orain arte jorratu dugunak. Bere aurkezpena hemendik egingo du, zenbait irudi eta erabiliko ditu eta pantailan ikusi ahal izango dituzue, beraz, muitu zaitezte, problemari gabe, jarri eroso. Decía que ella nos va a acompañar desde su presentación desde aquí mismo. También es posible que nos va a mostrar también algunos otros elementos que podréis seguir, espero que cómodamente, desde las pantallas. Elisa?
Can I stand up?
As you want, as you prefer.
I prefer, because
yes, of course,
otherwise
of course.
I would be alone.
Don't worry.
I don't like loneliness. Okay, so good morning, buenos días, egunon. So, why I'm here today? When Lorea contacted me some weeks ago, she insisted a lot on the fact that my intervention should be pedagogical. Well, I'm in the Mecca of the worker cooperative movement, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to be pedagogical with you, actually, because I think that you don't need to receive any explanations about what worker cooperatives are, of course. So, actually, I think that the best thing to do today would be to, let's say, share with you some key concepts and explain a little bit how, at the international level, the worker cooperative movement is building a message about our identity. So the activities that are being implemented at the international level. And why we think that this is important also to face the challenges of the future that we have discussed together today. So voy a hablar en inglés porque mi castellano es lamentable, lo siento mucho. Pero soy italiana y hablo inglés en una manera que se comprende muy bien desde el español. Y voy a hablar muy despacio, pero si hay algo que no está claro, puede ser, me puedes ayudar, perfecto, para traducir. Pero me puedo, I can stop whenever you need, okay? So, next one. So today, as I told you, I will explain a little bit how we have been building the identity of the worker cooperative movement. And of course, I would like also to take advantage of this presentation today in order to share with you some basic, if you want, information about the worker cooperative movements worldwide, and also speak a little bit with you about the future. First of all, I would need to find the good paper. So, a very important point will be also the third one, because I would like also to discuss with you, and also why not debate with you, about some key concepts about the contribution given by worker cooperatives to sustainable development to the future, of course according to the experiences that exist within our network. I cannot sit down, sorry, I really have to move, so I'm sorry if this can be a problem for you, but I really need to move. So next one. So CICOPA is the organization I work for, and is sectorally defined. So we are an organization belonging to the International Cooperative Alliance since quite a lot, since 1947, and nowadays we associate 45 members in 29 countries. What does this mean? That our members, of course, are not the cooperatives, but we affiliate the national federations of cooperatives in industry and services. So, for example, here in Spain, our member is COSETA, that, of course, I'm sure all of you know quite well. Within these sectors, industry and services, the cooperatives that are part of our network are three different types. The most representative type is worker cooperatives. So worker cooperatives, Cooperativas de Trabajo Asociado, of course, as you already know, represent a distinct type of organization, of labor organization, because in a worker cooperatives, as of course you know better than me, the members of the enterprise are the workers of the enterprise. So this is, of course, really important. And worker cooperatives are the majority of our members. But there are also other types of cooperatives, the social cooperatives, and the employed producers cooperatives. This is a very important point. And this is, if you want, the most important point regarding our identity. So at a certain point in the history, as you may know, maybe actually worker cooperatives have been existing for a long time, almost 2 centuries. And the first worker cooperatives actually was created in Paris, and it was its name was Goldsmiths Association, and it was a worker cooperative of jewelers. And it was created in the 19th century, in 1834. So this tells us that for a long time, people are trying to respond to a permanent need expressed by all human beings nowadays, that is to improve their work conditions and to dignify work. And this is precisely the need that worker cooperatives try to answer to. And at a certain point in the history, it has become very, very important, necessary, crucial, to define some basic characteristics of worker cooperatives. So, to make a mapping, let's say, of the experience worldwide, and to try to find the common elements, the common characteristics, what worker cooperatives existing worldwide have in common. This is why the worker cooperative movement came out with the Declaration on Worker Cooperatives. The Declaration on Worker Cooperatives was approved at the International Cooperative Alliance in 2005 in Cartagena, and it is a milestone for our worker cooperative movement and for the cooperative movement in general, of course. Why? Because through this declaration, cooperatives enhances their coherence and their universal identity. And this declaration represents, if you want, an important term of reference in the favor of worker cooperatives and their future development. And so if you want, it's an important tool that it's at disposal of the different national or local worker cooperative movement, also to manage their relations with the other actors of the society, like, for example, the state, like other types of enterprises, and so on. And this is very important also because it prevents worker cooperatives from being abused, from being instrumentalized. For example, one of the main challenges that worker cooperatives are being experiencing in some countries, like for example in Colombia, just to give you an example, is to make people understand the true nature and mission of worker cooperatives that actually very often are reduced to intermediaries for jobs. So this is why using this paper in front of the state institutions, it is very important to protect worker cooperatives. Of course, a challenge for the future, I was discussing about this with a colleague just beforehand, is to ensure that this paper is not just a paper, that this paper keeps reflecting a reality that is changing, of course. So we have to ensure that there is always a direct link between this declaration and the reality, the concrete reality that is changing. So we should ensure as an international movement that this declaration is always ready to be adapted to the reality. And there are some basic characteristics that, of course, I don't have to explain you that much, but I will just list them. Create and maintain sustainable jobs and dignify human work, of course, is the basic mission of worker cooperatives. And also, the Worker Declaration insists on the fact that free and voluntary membership is conditioned by the existence of workplaces. Another important point is that work shall be carried out by members. So this implicitly, what does this mean implicitly? It means that in a worker cooperatives, the majority of workers should be members and vice versa, which seems to be, let's say, that implicit, but actually it's a challenge to ensure that it's always the case in all countries. It's not a standard that it is always respected, even if we could say that is really the most important one and foundative one of the definition of worker cooperatives. Of course, protect the worker members with appropriate system of welfare, social security, and occupational health. Of course, I don't have to teach you anything because in Mondragon we know very well Lagunaro, and so the experience of try to find a way, effective way to ensure that all worker members have access to social security and health services and so on. And another basic important point is ensure permanent education and training for capacity building of members. This is a very important point of worker cooperatives, of which I think that we don't speak enough. This is really important. Why? Because actually the interest of members in a worker cooperative is to be trained in order to be able to make their business effective. But in worker cooperative, given that we are speaking about cooperatives, training is not just about business skills. Training is also about how we decide together, how we take democratically decisions. And this is also a very important point. And I love this point. Why? Because in the current, let's say, scenario, one of the most important challenges today, as we all know, is to ensure the transgenerational, intergenerational transmission. And I think that education in worker cooperatives is one of the most effective, let's say, strategy tools to ensure the transmission of competences, not also in terms of business skills, but also in terms of governance among the different generations, between generations. And of course, compensate the work of members equitably. About this point, I would like to say that I don't know why I'm using this as a microphone, but okay. I like it. So I will keep using it as a microphone. So compensate the work of members equitably, it's a very important point. We have carried out research in CICOPA. We have released a report in 2014 about the impact of cooperatives in employment. So actually the research was carried out among the different sectors with a specific focus on worker cooperatives, it's true, but we made a both qualitative and quantitative research in 10 different regions worldwide, and we applied different instruments of research, quantitative and qualitative, to try to understand what makes the experience of working in a cooperative different if this is the case, because we cannot consider a data itself. And one of the information that we found out was that generally speaking, in cooperatives more than in other types of enterprises, there is a narrow gap, a smaller gap in remuneration between the different functions and responsibilities within cooperatives. And this is, of course, very important and a very important piece of information. So, coming back to data, now here you can see some basic facts and figures that are also the result of the research I mentioned just beforehand. So, what's the size of this international movement? The CICOPA network represents 68,000 enterprises. So I'm speaking just about the CICOPA network. So the members of our members, 4 million employees, and as you can see, the big majority of these employees are worker members and producer members. But thanks to the research on employment, we could also make, let's say, a counting of worker cooperatives that are not directly affiliated to CICOPA. And we found out that actually the worker cooperative movement is quite an important phenomenon because it gathers 16 million of employees, of which almost 11 million are worker members. Now, I'm Italian, but I live in Belgium. And in Belgium, there are almost 11 million inhabitants. Now you can say that I chose the not appropriate example because Belgium is a very small country. But I think that it is quite interesting just to have an idea of the size. So globally, the number of worker members is like the number of inhabitants in Belgium, which I think it's quite interesting if you think about that. So what about the geographic distribution? Here you can see the distribution of cooperatives. So we are speaking about number of enterprises and the different averages according to the continent. And you can see that worker cooperatives are mostly concentrated in Europe. Well, then you will see afterwards in the table that if we enlarge the research and the counting without the CICOPA network, and if we speak about number of employees and not about number of enterprises, figures can change. But let's focus on this map now. Europe is the most represented one, and we can say that there are some countries in which cooperatives are particularly developed, and where, in spite of the economic crisis that has hit these countries more than others, worker cooperatives are displaying a strong resilience. These countries are Italy, Spain, and France. We try to reflect about why in these countries the worker cooperative movement is stronger, and we can, of course, make some hypotheses. These hypotheses can be summarized as you see. So, of course, because the cooperative movement is stronger. And it's not just a question of strength, it's a question of territorial distribution. For example, let's make an example, France. In France, since the economic crisis that flared up in 2018, there has been a huge amount of worker buyouts being implemented. These worker buyouts are implemented thanks to the fact that there is a strong presence of the cooperative movement with the accompanying consultancy and structures at the territorial level. So the organization is next to the cooperative. And this is a very important point. And of course, there is also, in these countries, there are also specific laws and public policies promoting the development of these type of cooperative. And even I would say, it's really important, not only public policies, generally speaking, but basically the recognition of this type of cooperative itself through, for example, sectoral laws. So recognize the worker cooperatives as a specific type of cooperatives is a milestone, is a very important step, because this allows recognizing the specificity of the labor relation and allow, for example, worker members accessing social security system as for other so-called conventional employees. So this is very important. A third element is that worker cooperatives have developed specific tools for their development. So I can say, for example, the use of indivisible reserves, the use of intercooperation, so horizontal groups, and the establishment of specific funds of their for their development. I will not go further in these explanations, but if you want, you can, of course, make questions about that. Okay, now from the report on employment, here we can say that if we speak about the number of worker members, actually figures change. You can see that actually the highest number is in Asia, followed by Americas and Europe. And in this table, you can also see, of course, the total amount is, as I said beforehand, almost 11 million worker members. And you can also see the average compared to the number of employees worldwide in cooperatives, of course, and the number of producer members in cooperatives. So you can see that, according to the research that we carried out, we could estimate that the cooperative movement employs directly or indirectly 250 million people in the world. And it is a huge amount of people. And in this table, I chose this table because it is quite representative of the diversity of the development and presence of worker cooperatives worldwide. This is the list of regions where we made the research on employment. And you can see, for example, the average of worker members out of the total employment in the region and the total employment in COPs. Just to make an example, in Emilia-Romagna, that by the way is the region I come from in Italy, the cooperative employment represents almost 15% of the total total employed population in the region. So it is a huge amount of people. And worker members represent 34% of total cooperative employment. And there are also other regions like the Basque Country and Paraíba in Argentina, which also show very big ratio of worker members out of total cooperative employment. When we speak within our network in CICOPA, so we go back to the figures just about our network, there are different types of activities, and of course there are also different development trends that have been displayed during the last more recent years. The most representative activity is manufacturing, followed by community services, which means educational, social, and health services, trade and repair, construction, and professional activities. So worker cooperatives are within all these economic activities, but there you can find also individual producer, cooperatives of individual producers, or social cooperatives. For example, there is an high average of social cooperatives in community services. During the most recent years, we have been observing a very interesting phenomenon, which is a very high, very quick development of services as a whole. So in terms of sectoral challenges, from the perspective, from the point of view of CICOPA, we are thinking about, if you want, the balance between industrial and service activities, because there are a lot of changes that we can see nowadays, and it would be interesting, for example, to see, to know the point of view of Mondragon about that, because I know that also within the Mondragon group there is a changing balance between industrial and service activities. And community services in particular have been developing a lot during the last 20 years, and we have even a more recent phenomenon which we are observing, about which we don't know that much so far, but we are trying to understand more, is the growth of professional activities. So for example, architects, designers, ITC experts, etc. This is a very challenging issue because there are countries in which the phenomenon is very, very quick and interesting, for example, UK, just to mention an example. And in this type of activities, we can find people are organizing themselves not only under the form of worker cooperative, but also under the form of freelancer cooperatives. So there is also this aspect, this phenomenon of freelancer cooperatives that is appearing as a very important phenomenon, and we have to think about that for the future. So, if we look at the experience reported by our members within our network, we can say that our cooperatives are proposing a specific paradigm for sustainable development. They have been displaying a strong resilience thanks to the fact that through the participation of worker members to the management of the enterprise, they can guarantee stable jobs, quality jobs, thanks to the capital accumulation and build-up of reserve funds, thanks to the business transfer to employees, in particular in some countries like Argentina, France, Spain, and Italy, the establishment of horizontal groups and consortia. All these ingredients, let's say, contribute to, let's say, this result in terms of local and sustainable development. So, the question is, how can we, given that this is our experience, starting from this experience, how can we face the future challenges? There are a lot of challenges in the future, just to mention some of them, digitalization, globalization, internationalization, the future of work, new types of works appearing, and so on. But we think that one of the biggest challenges is to guarantee the future of worker cooperatives themselves. And how can we ensure it through the transmission of cooperatives to new generations? So the youth is the future for us. And of course, there are a lot of good reasons to say that this is the case. I mean, the current socio-economic scenario tells us about youth employment that has been increasing to alarming levels, young people that are demanding for more democracy and transparency, and young people that are also showing an increasing interest for new forms and other forms of startups. So we think that worker cooperatives, among others, of course, could be a good answer, a good response to these needs. But young people, we need to reach young people, and we need to inform them about this possibility. Because during the debate today, I heard very interesting things, and one of them was that the cooperative movement need to reflect, need to think about its identity, but also to go out and to inform people, educate people. And I think that the most important target nowadays for the future itself of the cooperative movement is outreach and how to inform and how to educate and how to involve youth. So that's why CICOPA is going to launch, actually, a campaign whose purpose is precisely to inform young people about this specific type of entrepreneurship model. The main results of the campaign will be the promotion of the video that I'm going to show you the trailer of the video, but also we would like also to make a report, a research, trying to inform people about how cooperatives in industry and services are being created by young people in the different countries worldwide, belonging to our network, of course, and also a final event sharing experiences coming from worker cooperatives or social cooperatives or artisans cooperatives created by young people, and also website. So we will create a website sharing all the information that could be useful for young people to network among each other and create a cooperative. We will see the video, of course, but I would like to invite you to go to the website, so donation.cicopa.com. You will find more information about this campaign, and of course, if you want, you could also contribute to this campaign. To contribute to this campaign, you can make a donation, or simply you can spread the word about this campaign and promote it within your network. I'm not the person in charge of this campaign. My colleague Leire Luengo, that you may know, who is in charge of coordinating it. So, of course, if you need some further information, don't hesitate contacting her. You can find her email address here. And otherwise you ask me. And so I would like to thank you very much for this opportunity to share this information with you today, and I would like to leave you with showing you the trailer of the video that we will promote. Thank you very much.
皆さんこんにちは。
Hola. Hi there.
Como tú, somos jóvenes que queremos decidir nuestro presente y nuestro futuro. Formamos nuestra propia herramienta para construir nuestro porvenir.
A worker cooperative or social cooperative.
Oui, nous aimons travailler de façon engagée, guidée par la gestion concertée.
União e solidariedade.
In all culture.
Todas las partes del mundo.
Unidos e integrados, formamos el movimiento de las cooperativas de trabajo y cooperativas sociales.
Jak? Dlaczego? Opowiemy Wam historię z Polski.
from South Africa.
私たちの物語をお伝えします。
Depuis la France.
Te lo contamos desde Argentina.
Vi raccontiamo la nostra storia dall'Italia.
É a nossa história a partir do Brasil.
The USA.
Te lo contamos desde España.
And a very important thing that I forgot to tell you about the way that this this movie was produced is that it was completely auto-produced and auto-financed. It was really a proof of intercooperation within the worker cooperative movement, because it is, if you want, a collage of different movies made by cooperatives themselves. And it was produced by CICOPA in cooperation with the CICOPA Mercosur, which is the sub-regional organization of CICOPA Americas. And so it was really an example of what we can do simply through our efforts. But of course, we need also you in order to spread this information. So thank you for cooperating with us.
Muchísimas gracias, Elisa. No sé si estamos muy justitos y justitas de tiempo, pero si alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta, podemos, creo que, explotar un poquito más a Elisa, unos minutos al menos. Si alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta o alguna reflexión sobre los elementos que nos ha comentado, entiende perfectamente en castellano, y en inglés sí. Creo que no ha habido ningún problema también para entenderla. O sea que si queréis, Elisa, yo mientras se va calentando un poquito alguien, sí que me parece que ¿sí? Me gustaría preguntarte alguna cosa que creo que ha quedado en el aire y que tal vez podría ser interesante, porque como has mencionado, puede ser un debate que entra muy de lleno, incluso en la evolución de muchas de las actividades que están representadas en esta sala, porque el propio Mondragón también está haciendo ese viraje que decías, o buscando ese equilibrio entre lo que es una actividad puramente industrial, manufacturing, hacia terrenos más de servicios, toda vez que la propia actividad industrial, como una gran tendencia de la economía, se está servitizando, ¿no? ¿De qué manera puede esto ayudar a desarrollar todavía más el movimiento cooperativista de trabajadores y trabajadoras? Can this help developing more the basis of the industrial manufacturing experience that are very rich, and could be another opportunity to develop new ways of cooperativism?
I think that it is a challenge, and the challenge can easily be converted, turned into an opportunity, as far as the representative organization or accompanying organization of cooperatives are ready to listen to the change and accompany cooperatives to develop themselves. So the change is being implemented. This is a reality. So I think that it is the challenge and the responsibility of the worker cooperative movement, in this case, of the cooperative movement in industry and services, to listen to cooperators and to try to answer to their needs in order to represent their interest in the best way possible. So I think that the challenge is more for the worker cooperative movements and representative organization than for cooperatives themselves.
Thank you. That's another question. I don't know, the microphone. Wait a minute. Wait. For you. Thanks.
So I feel sometimes that we go real far on the search for those empowered young people, trying to empower them more. But somehow I feel that what's really lacking is the second step to that. So once you have those young people that are willing to do things, how is the old people react to, well, yeah, because we don't talk about all empowered people. We always talk about young empowered people. So my question goes to how is it that once we have those, that actually there's 20 of us here around, how do we integrate those in the everyday life of that bothering bug, right? Because at the end of the day, when you want empowered people, somehow you change things, and that's not easy. So the integration of those empowered young people in the society, so that second step, you have them, now what do you do? That's kind of my question there, because there's no the program for the second step. Somehow I feel it's lacking sometimes.
It's a program difficult to establish in advance. I mean, I think that it is a change that is being happening within cooperatives, and I think that one of the challenge is to see it, again, not only as a challenge, but also as an opportunity, and to think about cooperatives as the best way, the best model to ensure the generational transmission through the democratic participation, through the education. So not to see actually let's say two groups, one against the other, but just to try to think together about the best methodologies and strategy to ensure that the elderly generations, the previous generation, can pass their experience and their knowledge to the new ones. Because this is actually the ingredients for cooperatives. Cooperatives are sustainable models. Cooperatives are made, are conceived to answer to people's needs today, but are conceived in order to exist tomorrow. So nowadays, the challenge is to try to understand how the previous generations can teach to the next generation to manage cooperatives. But this is up to cooperators to tell us. We represent cooperators, but you are cooperators. So this question should be actually addressed to them, I think.
I think that's all the things. Another question? No? Thank you very much. Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you.
Os voy a pedir un aplauso para agradecerle el tiempo, el conocimiento y las excelentes reflexiones que nos ha prestado nuevamente, por si es un poco complicado quedarnos con toda la información que nos ha facilitado. Nuevamente os recuerdo que también esta presentación estará disponible en este foro virtual de Forokoop, forokoop.coop, que es precisamente donde nos gustaría seguir encontrándonos, no solamente hoy, sino también en los próximos días. Bukatzen ari gara, gaurko goiza bizkor joan da, denetarik izan du, gogoeta, jolasa ere bai.